First Kings chapter 1, David old age. When the king David was old and advanced in years, though they covered with him the blanket, he could not get warm. His servant therefore said to him, Let a young virgin be sought to attend my lord the king, and the nursing. If she sleeps with you, my lord the king will be warm. So they sought for a beautiful girl throughout the territory of Israel and found Abizag the Shunammite. So they brought her to the kings. The girl was very beautiful indeed, and she nourished the king and took care of him, but the king did not have a relation with her. Adonijah's ambition. Adonijah, son of the Haggis, boasted, I shall be king, and he provided himself with the chariot, the horses, and the retinue of 50 to go before him. Yet his father would never antagonize him by asking, Why are you doing this? Adonijah was also very handsome and next to in age to Absalom by the same mother. He consulted with Joab, son of the Zeruiah, and with Abiathar the priest, and they became Adonijah's supporters. However, Zadok the priest, Benaiah, son of the Jehoiada, Nathan the prophet, Shimei, and Lay, and David the warriors did not support the Adonijah. Adonijah slaughtered the sheep, oxen, and 14 at the stone Zohelas near En-Rogel, and invited all his brothers, the king's sons, and the royal official of the Judah. But he did not invite Nathan the prophet, or Benaiah, or the warriors, or Solomon his brother. Solomon proclaimed the king. Then Nathan said to Bathsheba, Solomon murdered. Have you not heard that Adonijah, son of the Haggis, has become king, and our Lord David does not know? Come now, let me advise you, so that you may save your life and the life of your son Solomon. Go visit King David and say to him, Did you not, my lord king, swear to your handmaid, Your son Solomon shall be king after me. It is he who shall sit upon my thrones. Why then has Adonijah become kings? And while you are still there speaking to the king, I will come in after you and confirm your words. So Bathsheba visited the king in his room. The king was very old, and Abizag the Shunammite was caring for the kings. Bathsheba bowed in homage to the king. The king said to her, What do you wish? She answered him, My lord, you swore to your servant by the Lord your God, Solomon your son will be king after me. It is he who shall sit upon my thrones. But now Adonijah has become king, and you, my lord king, do not know it. He has sacrificed bulls, faltering, and sheep in great numbers. He has invited all the king's sons, Abiathar the priest, and Joab the commander of the army, but not your servant Solomon. Now, my lord king, all Israel is looking to you to declare to them who is to sit upon the throne of my lord the king after him. If this is not done, when my lord the king rests with his ancestor, I and my son Solomon will be considered criminals. While she was still speaking to the king, Nathan the prophet came in. They told the king, Nathan the prophet is here. He entered the king's presence and did him homage, bowing to the floor. Then Nathan said, My lord king, did you say, Adonijah shall be king after me, and shall sit upon my thrones? For today he went down and sacrificed bulls, faltering, and sheep in great numbers. He invited all the king's sons, the commander of the army, and Abiathar the priest, and even now they are eating and drinking in his company, and saying, Long live King Adonijah. But me, your servant, he did not invite, nor Zadok the priest, nor Benaiah, son of the Jehoiada, either, nor your servant Solomon. If this was done by order of my lord the king, you did not tell me, your servant who is to sit upon the throne of my lord the king after him. King David answered, call Bathsheba here. When she entered the king's presence and stood before him. The king swore, as the Lord lives, who has redeemed my life from all its distress. This very day I fulfilled the oath I swore to you by the Lord, the God of Israel. Your son Solomon shall be king after me, and shall sit upon my throne in my place. Bowing to the floor in homage to the king, Bathsheba said, May my lord King David live forever. Then the king David said, call Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah, son of the Jehoiada. When they had entered the king's presence, he said to them, take with you the royal official, mount my son Solomon upon my own mule, and escort him down to the Gihons. Then Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet shall anoint him king over Israel, and you shall blow the ram's horn and cry, long live King Solomon. When you come back up with him, he is to go in and sit upon my throne. It is he that shall be king in my place. Him I designate ruler of the Israel and of Judah. Benaiah, son of the Jehoiada, answered the king, so be it. May the Lord God of my lord the king so decrease. As the Lord has been with my lord the king, so may he be with Solomon, and make his throne even greater than of my lord King David. So Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah son of the Jehoiada, and the Cheretite and the Peletite went down, and mounting Solomon on the King David mule, escorted him to the Gihon. Then Zadok the priest took the horn of the oil from the tent of the anointed Solomon. They blew the ram horn, and all the people shouted, long live King Solomon. Then all the people went out after him, playing flute, and rejoiced so much that all split with their shoutings. Adonijah submitted to the Solomon. Adonijah and all the guests who were with him hurried just as they ended their banquet. When the Joab heard the sound of the ram horns, he asked, why this uproar in the city? As he was speaking, Jonathan, son of the Abiathar, the priest, arrived. Adonijah said, come, you are the man of the wars and must bring good news. Jonathan answered Adonijah the hardly, our Lord King David has made Solomon king. The king sent with him Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah son of the Jehoiada, and the Cheretite and the Peletite, and they mounted him upon the king's own mules. Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anointed him king at the Gihon, and they went up from the rejoicing, so that the city in the uproars, there is noise you hear. Moreover, Solomon has taken his seat on their royal thrones. And moreover, the king's servants have come to pay their respect to our Lord King David, saying, may your God make Solomon's name more famous than your name. His throne greater than your throne, and the king in his bed did homage. This is what the king said, blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who has this day provided one to sit upon my throne, so that I see it with my own eyes. All the guests of the Adonijah got up trembling and went their ways. But Adonijah, in fear of the Solomon, got up and went to grasp the horn of the altars. It was reported to Solomon, Adonijah, in the fear of the king Solomon, in clinging to the horns of the altar and saying, let King Solomon first swear that he will not kill me, his servant, with the sword. Solomon answered, if he proves worthy, not a hair of his shall fall to the ground, but if evil is found in him, he shall die. King Solomon sent to have him brought down from the altar, and he came and paid homage to the king Solomon. Solomon then said to him, go to your house. 1 Kings chapter 2, David arrives instruction and death. When the time of David's death drew near, he gave this instruction to Solomon his son. I am going the way of all the earth, be strong and be a man. Keep the mandate of the Lord your God, working in his ways and keeping his statute, command, the ordinance, and the decree, as they are written in the law of the Moses, that you may succeed in whatever you do wherever you turn. And that the Lord may fulfill the word he spoke concerning me, if your sons so conduct themselves that they walk before me in faithfulness with their whole heart and soul. There shall never be wanting someone of your line on the throne of your Israel. You yourself know what Joab son of Zeruiah did to me, what he to the two commanders of the Israel armies, Abner son of Ner and Amasa son of Zethar. He killed them and brought the blood of the war into a time of the peace, and put the blood of the war on the belt about his waist and the sandal on his foot. Act with all the wisdom you possess. Do not let his gray head go down to Sheol in peace. But be true to the son of the Barzillai, the Gileadite, and have them among those who eat at your table. For they were loyal to me when I was fleeing from your brother Absalom. You also have with you Shimei, son of the Gera, the Benjamite of the Baalims, who cursed me bitterly the day I was going to Mahanaim. When he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, I will not kill you by the sword. But you must not let him go unpunished. You are wise, you will know what to do to send his gray head down to the Sheol in blood. David rested with his ancestor and was buried in the city of David. David was king over Israel for 40 years. He was king 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem, the kingdom made secure. Then Solomon sat on the throne of David his father, and his kingship was established. Adonijah, son of the Haggith, came to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon. Do you come in peace? She asked. In peace, he answered. And he added, I have something to say to you. She replied, speak. So he said, you know that the kingship was mine, and all Israel expect to be king, but the kingship passed me by and went to my brother. By the Lord's will it went to him. But now there is one favor I would ask of you. Do not refuse me. And she said, speak on. He said, please ask King Solomon, who will not refuse you, to give me Abishag the Shumanite to be my wife. Bathsheba replied, very well, I will speak to the king for you. Then Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak to him for Adonijah, and the king stood up to meet her and paid her homage. Then he sat down upon his throne, and the throne was provided for the king's mother, who sat at his right. She said, there is one small favor I would ask of you. Do not refuse me. The king said to her, ask it, my mother, for I will not refuse you. So she said, let Abishag the Shumite be given to your brother Adonijah to be his wife. King Solomon answered his mother, and why do you ask that Abishag the Shumanite be given to Adonijah? Ask the kingship for him as well, for he is my older brother. Ask for him. For Abiathar the priest, for Joab son of the Zeruiah. And King Solomon swore by the Lord, may God do thus to me and more, if Adonijah has not spoken this word at the cost of his life. And now as the Lord lives, who has established me and set me on the throne of David my father, and made for me a house as he promised, this day shall Adonijah be put to death. Then King Solomon sent Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, who struck him dead. The king said to Abiathar the priest, "Go to your estate in the Anathoth. Though you deserve to die, I will not put you to death at this time. Because you carried the ark of the Lord before David my father, and shared in all hardship my father endured." So Solomon dismissed Abiathar from the office of the priest of the Lord, thus fulfilling the word the Lord had spoken in the Shiloh against the house of the Eli. When the news came to Joab, since he had sided with Adonijah, though not with Absalom, he fled to the tent of the Lord and clung to the horns of the altar. King Solomon was told that Joab has fled to the tent of the Lord and is by altar. He sent Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, with the order, "Go struck him down." Benaiah went to the tent of the Lord and said to him, "The king said, 'Come out,' but he answered, 'Now I'll die here.'" Benaiah reported to the king, "This is what Joab said to me in reply." The king answered him too, as he has said, "Strike him down and bury him, and remove from me and from my father's house the blood which Joab shed without provocation. The Lord will bring blood upon his own head, because he struck down 2 men better and more just than himself, and slew them with the sword without my father David's knowledge. Abner, son of the Ner, commander of the Israel army, and Amasa, son of the Jephthah, commander of the Judah armies. Their blood will be put upon the head of the Joab as his descendant, but upon David and his descendant, upon his house and his throne. There shall be peace forever from the Lord." Benaiah, son of the Jehoiada, went back, struck him down, and killed him. He was buried in house in the wilderness. The king appointed Benaiah, son of the Jehoiada, over the army in his place. Zadok the priest the king put in the place of the Abiathars. Then the king summoned Shimei and said to him, "Build yourself a house in Jerusalem and stay there. Do not go anywhere else. For the day you lived and crossed the Wadi Kidron, be certain you shall surely die. Your blood shall be upon your own head." Shimei answered the king, "I accept. Your servant will do just as my lord the king has said." So Shimei stayed in Jerusalem for a long time. But 3 years later, 2 of the Shimei's servants ran away to the Achish, son of the Maacah, king of Gath, and Shimei was told, "Your servants are in Gath." So Shimei rose, saddled his donkey, and went to the Achish in Gath in search of his servant. And Shimei returned from Gath with his servant. When Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and had returned, the king summoned Shimei and said to him, "Did I not have you swear by the Lord and warn you clearly? Today you live and go anywhere else, be certain you shall surely die." And you answered, "I accept and obey." Why then have you not kept the oath of the Lord and the command that I gave you? And the king said to Shimei, "In your heart you know very well the evil that you did to David my father. Now the Lord is bringing your own evil upon your head. But King Solomon shall be blessed, and David's throne shall be established before the Lord forever." The king then gave the order to Benaiah, son of the Jehoiada, who went out and struck him dead. And the royal power was established in Solomon's hands. 1 Kings chapter 3 is the earlier promise of the Solomon reign. Solomon allied himself by marriage with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. He married the daughter of the Pharaoh and brought her to the city of David, until he should have finished building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. The people were sacrificed on the high places. However, for up to that time, no house had been built for the name of the Lord. Although Solomon loved the Lord, working in the statute of the David his father, he offered the sacrifice and burned the incense on the high places. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there because there was the great high place. Upon its altar Solomon sacrificed 1,000 burnt offerings. In Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. God said, "Whatever you ask I shall give you." Solomon answered, "You have shown great kindness to your servant David my father, because he walked before you with fidelity, justice, and a right heart. And you have continued this great kindness toward him today, giving him a son to sit upon his throne. Now, the Lord my God, you have made me your servant king to succeed David my father, but I am a mere youth, not knowing at all how to act. I, your servant among the people you have chosen, a people so vast that it cannot be numbered or counted. Give your servant therefore a listening heart to judge your people and to distinguish between good and evil. For who is able to give judgment for this vast people of yours?" The Lord was pleased by Solomon's request. So God said to him, "Because you asked of this, you did not ask for a long life for yourself, nor for riches, nor for the life of your enemies, but you asked for discernment to know what is right. I now do as you request. I give you a heart so wise and discerning that there has never been anyone like you until now, nor after you will there be anyone to equal you. In addition, I give you what you have not asked for. I give you such riches and glory that among kings there will be no one like you all your days. And if you walk in my ways, keeping my statute and commandment, as David your father did, I will give you a long life." Solomon awoke. It was a dream. He went to the Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, sacrificed burnt offering and the communion offering, and gave a feast for all his servants. Solomon, a listening heart, later two prostitutes came to king and stood before him. One woman said, "By your leaves, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I gave birth in the house while she was present. On the third day after I gave birth, this woman also gave birth. We were alone. No one else was in the house with us. Only the two of us were in the house. The woman's son died during the night when she lay on top of him. So in the middle of the night, she got up and took my son from my side as your servant was sleeping. Then she laid him in her bosom and laid her dead son in my bosom. I rose in the morning to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I examined him in the morning light, I saw it was not the son I had born." The other woman answered, "No, the living one is my son, the dead one is yours." But the first kept saying, "No, the dead one is your son, the living one is mine." Thus they argued before the king. Then the king said, "One woman claims, 'This, the living one, is my son, the dead one is yours.' The other answered, 'No, the dead one is your son, the living one is mine.' The king continued, 'Get me a sword.' When they brought the sword before the kings, he said, 'Cut a living child in two and give half to one woman and half to the other.' The woman whose son was alive, because she was stirred with compassion for her son, said to the king, 'Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Do not kill it.' But the other said, 'It shall be neither mine nor yours. Cut it in two.' The king then answered, 'Give her the living baby. Do not kill it. She is the mother.' When all Israel heard the judgment the king had given, they were in awe of him, because they saw the king had in him the wisdom of God for giving right judgment. 1 Kings chapter 4, Solomon reaches domestic affairs. Solomon was king over all Israel, and these were the officials he had in his service: Azariah, son of Zadok the priest, Eliolab, and Ijah, son of the Shisha scribes, Jehoshaphat, the son of the Ahilud, the counselors, Benaiah, son of the Jehoiada, in charge of the army, Zadok and Abiathar, priest, Azariah, son of the Nathan, in charge of the governors, Zabud, son of the Nathan, priest and companion to the kings, Ashishar, the master of the palace, and Adoniram, son of the Abda, in charge of the forced laborers. Solomon had 12 governors over all Israel who supplied food for the king and his household, each having to provide for 1 month in the years. Their names were the son of the Hor in the hill country of the Ephraim, the son of the Dikar in Makaz, Sharbim, Beth-Shemesh, and Elon Beth-Hanas, the son of the Hesed in the Arubos, as well as in the Sukkot and the whole region of the Hephras, the son of the Abinadab in all the Nathdor. He was married to the Taphars, Solomon Dors. Baana, son of the Ahilud in the Tanarch and the Megiddo, and all Beth-sheba near Zerathan below Zetur, from Beth-shuan to the Abel Melolah to beyond the Jokmeams. The son of the Giba in the Lamos Gilead, having charge of the village of the Ze'ar, son of the Manasseh in Gilead, and of the district of the Argob in the Bashan, 60 large walled cities with the gate barred with bronze. Ainadab, son of the Edo in Mahanaim, Aimaaz in Naphtali. He was married to the Basemath, another daughter of the Solomon. Baana, son of the Husai in Asher in Alos. Jehoshaphat, the son of the Baruah in Issachar. Shimei, son of the Elah in Benjamin. Giba, son of the Uri in the land of the Gilead, the land of the Shihon, king of the Amorite, and of the Og, king of the Bashan. There was one governor beside in the land of the Judah. Judah and Israel was as numerous as the sand by the sea. They ate and drank and rejoiced. 1 Kings chapter 5, Solomon reaches international affairs. Solomon ruled over all the kingdom, from the river to the land of the Philistines, down to the border of Egypt. They paid Solomon tribute and served him as long as he lived. Solomon's provision for each day were 30 core of the fine flour, 60 core of the meal, 10 fatted oxen, 20 pasture-fed oxen, and 100 sheep, not counting herds, gazeries, lowbucks, and fatted fowls. He had dominion over all the land west of the river, from the Tipshah to Gaza, and all its kings, and he had peace on all his borders round about. The Judah and Israel lived in the security, everyone under their own vine and fig tree, from Dan to Beersheba, as long as Solomon lived. Solomon reaches chariot and horses. Solomon had 40,000 store for horses and for chariot, and 12,000 horsemen. The governor, one for each month, provided food for the King Solomon and for all the guests at the King Solomon table. They left nothing unprovided. For the chariot, the horse, and the draft animals also, each brought his quarter of the barley and the straw to the required place. Solomon renowned. Moreover, God gave Solomon wisdom, exceptional understanding, and knowledge as fast as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom surpassed that of all the people of the East and all the wisdom of the Egypt. He was wiser than anyone else, wiser than Ethan the Israelite, or Heman, Chakor, and Dada the musician, and his fame spread throughout the neighboring peoples. Solomon also uttered 3,000 proverbs, and his song numbered 1,005. He spoke of the plants from the cedar on the Lebanon to the hyssop growing out of the wall, and he spoke about beasts, birds, reptiles, and fishes. People from all nations came to hear Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. Preparation for the temple. When the Hiram king of the Tyre heard that Solomon had been anointed king in place of his father, he sent an embassy to him, for Hiram had always been David's friend. Solomon sent back this message to Hiram. You know that David, my father, because of the wars that beset him, could not build a house for the name of the Lord his God, until such time as the Lord should put his enemy under the sole of his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me a rest on all sides without the adversary or misfortune. So I intend to build a house for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord said to David my father. Your son whom I put upon your throne in your place shall build the house for my name. Give orders then to have cedars from the Lebanon cut down for me. My servant shall accompany yours, and I will pay you whatever you say for your servant wages. For you know that there is no one among us who is skilled in cutting timber like the Sidonians. When Hiram had heard the words of the Solomon, he was overjoyed and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, who has given David a wise son over these numerous peoples. Hiram then sent the word to Solomon, I have heard the proposal you sent me, and I will provide all the cedars and the fir trees you desire. My servant shall bring them down from the Lebanon to the sea, and I will arrange them in the left in the sea and bring them wherever you say. There I will break up the left, and you shall take the lumbers. You for your part shall furnish your provision I desire for my household. So Hiram continued to provide Solomon with all the cedars and the fir trees he desired. While Solomon gave Hiram 20,000 cors of the wheat to provide for his household and 20 cors of the hand-pressed oil, Solomon gave Hiram all this every year. The Lord gave Solomon wisdom as he promised him, so there was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and the two of them made a covenant. King Solomon raised 30,000 forest rebels from all Israel. He sent them to the Lebanon for months in a relay of the 10,000, so that they spent 1 month in the Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of the forest laborers. Solomon had 70,000 carriers and 80,000 stone cutters in the mountain. In addition to 3,300 overseers answerable to Solomon, who were in charge of the work and directed the people engaged in the work. By the order of the king, fine large blocks of the stone were carried to give the house a foundation of hewn stone. Solomon and Hiram builders, along with the other from Gibeah, shaped them and prepared the wood and the stone for the building the house. 1 Kings chapter 6, building of the temple. In the 480th year after the Israelites went forth from the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of the Solomon reign over Israel. In the month of the Ziv, the second month, he began to build the house of the Lord. The house which King Solomon built for the Lord was 60 cubits long, 20 wide, and 30 high. The porch in front of the nave of the house was 20 cubits from side to side along the width of the house, and then 10 cubits deep in front of the house. Windows with closed lattices were made for the house. And adjoining the wall of the house, he built a subscripture around its walls that enclosed the nave and the inner sanctuaries. And he made side chambers all around. The lowest story was 5 cubits wide, the middle one 6 cubits wide, the third 7 cubits wide, because he put recesses along the outside of the house to avoid fastening anything into the wall of the house. The house was built of the stone dressed at the quarry so that no hammer or axe nor iron tool was to be heard in the house during its construction. The entrance to the middle story was on the south side of the house. Stairs led up to the middle story and from the middle story to the third. When he had finished building the house, it was roofed in with rafters and the board of the cedar. He built the substructure 5 cubits high all along the outside of the house, to which it was joined by cedar beams. The word of the Lord came to Solomon. As to this house you are building, if you walk in my statutes, carry out my ordinance, and observe all my commands, working in them, I fulfill toward you my word which I spoke to David your father. I will dwell in the midst of the Israelite and will not forsake my people Israel. When Solomon finished building the house, its inside walls were lined with cedar paneling. He covered the interior with wood from floor to the ceiling, and he covered its floor with floor plankings. At the rear of the house, a space of the 20 cubits was set up by cedar panels from the floor to the ceilings, enclosing the inner sanctuary, the Holy of Holies. The house was 40 cubits long, that is the nave, the part in front. The cedar in the interior of the house was carved in the form of the gourds and open flowers. All was of cedar, and no stone was to be seen. In the innermost part of the house, he set up the inner sanctuary to house the Ark of the Lord's Covenant. In front of the inner sanctuary, it was 20 cubits long, 20 wide, and 20 high, and he covered it with pure gold. He made an altar of the cedar. Solomon covered the interior of the house with pure gold, and he drew golden chains across in front of the inner sanctuary, and covered it with gold. He covered the whole house with gold until the whole house was done, and the whole altar that belonged to the inner sanctuary he covered with gold. In the inner sanctuary he made 2 cherubim, each 10 cubits high, made of pine. Each wing of the cherub was 5 cubits, so that the span from the wingtip to the wingtip was 10 cubits. The second cherub was also 10 cubits. The 2 cherubim was identical in size and shape. The first cherub was 10 cubits high, and so was the second. He placed the cherubim in the inmost part of the house. The wing of the cherubim was spread wide, so that one wing of the first touched the side wall, and the wing of the second touched the other walls. The wing pointing to the middle of the room touched each other. He overlaid the cherubim with gold. The wall of the house on all sides of both the inner and the outer rooms had carved the figure of the cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers. The floor of the house on both the inner and the outer rooms was overlaid with gold. At the entrance of the inner sanctuary, doors of the pine were made. The door frames had a 5-sided post. The 2 doors was of pine with a carved figure of the cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers. The door was overlaid with gold, and the cherubim and the palm trees were also covered with beaten gold. He did the same at the entrance to the nave, where the doorposts were of pine and were 4-sided. The two doors were of the fir wood, each door consisting of the two panels hinged together. And he carved cherubim palm trees and open flowers and plated them with gold. He wore out the inner court with 3 courses of hewn stone and 1 course of the cedar beams. The foundation of the Lord's house was laid in the month of Zivu in the 4th year. And it was finished in all particulars exactly according to the plan. In the month of the Bur, 18 months in the 11th year. Thus Solomon built it in 7 years. 1 Kings chapter 7. To finish the building of his own house, Solomon took 13 years. He built the house of the forest of the Lebanon on 100 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high. It was supported by 4 rows of the cedar columns, with cedar beams upon the columns. Moreover, it had the ceiling of the cedar above the rafters resting on the columns. These rafters numbered 45, 15 to a row. There were lattices in 3 rows, each row facing the next. And all the opening and the door posts were secured with lintels, each facing across from the next. He also made the porch of the columns 50 cubits long and 30 wide. The porch extended across the front, and there were columns with a canopy in front of them. He also made the porch of the throne where he gave judgment. That is the porch of judgment. It was paneled with cedar from floor to the ceiling beams. The house in which he lived was in another court set in deeper than the porch and of the same construction. Solomon made the house like this porch for Pharaoh's daughters, whom he had married. All these things were of the fine stones hewn to size and trimmed front and back with a saw, from the fountain to the bonding courses and outside as far as the great courts. The foundation was made of fine large blocks, some 10 cubits and some 8 cubits. Above were fine stones hewn to size and cedar wood. The great court had 3 courses of the hewn stone all around and a course of the cedar beams. So also was the inner court of the house of the Lord and its porch. King Solomon brought the Hiram from Tyre. He was a bronze worker, the son of the widow from the tribe of the Naphtali. His father had been from Tyre. He was endowed with wisdom, understanding, and knowledge for doing any work in bronze. He came to King Solomon and did all his metal work. He fashioned 2 bronze columns, each 18 cubits high and 12 cubits in circumference. He also made 2 capitals cast in bronze to be placed on top of the columns, each of them 5 cubits high. There was a meshes made like a netting and a braid made like a chain for the capital on the top of the columns, 7 for each capital. He also cast a pomegranate to roll around each netting to cover the capital on the top of the columns. The capital on top of the columns in the porch were made like lilies 4 cubits high. And the capital on the 2 columns, both above and adjoining the boards where it is crossed out of the netting, had 200 pomegranates in rows around its capitals. He set up the columns at the temple porch. One he set up to the south and called it Jachin, and the other to the north and called it Boaz. The top of the columns was made like a lily, thus the work on the columns was completed. Then he made the molten sea. It was made with a circular rim and measured 10 cubits across, 5 in height and 30 in circumference. Under the brim, garrows encircled it for 10 cubits around the compass of the sea. The garrows were into row of the work cast in the onboard with the sea. This rested on 12 oxen, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east, with their haunches all toward the center. Upon them was set the sea. It was a handbreadth thick, and its brim resembled that of the cup, being lily-shaped. Its capacity was 2,000 basses. He also made 10 stands of the bronze, each 4 cubits long, 4 wide, and 3 high. When these stands were constructed, the panels were set within the framework. On the panel within the frame there were lion, oxen, and cherubim, and on the frames likewise, above and below the lion and oxen, there were lights in the hammered reliefs. Each stand had 4 bronze wheels and bronze axles. The 4 legs of each stand had cast brasses, which were under the basin. There were lashes on each side. The mouth of the basin was inside, and the cubit above the crown, whose opening was round, made like a receptacle, a cubit and a half in depth. There was carved work at the opening on panels that were square, not circular. The 4 wheels were below the paneling, and the axle-trees of the wheels and the stand were of one piece. Each wheel was a cubit and a half high. The wheels were constructed like chariot wheels. Their axle-trees, rims, spokes, and hubs were all cast. The 4 blades reached the 4 corners of each stand and formed part of the stand. At the top of the stand there was a raised column half a cubit high, and the handles and the panels on top of the stand formed part of it. On the flat ends of the handles and on the panels, wherever there was a bare space, cherubim, lions, and palm trees were carved, as well as lashes all around. This was how he made the 10 stands, all of the same casting, the same size, the same shape. He made 10 bronze basins, each 4 cubits in diameter, with the capacity of the 40 basses, 1 basin atop each of the 10 stands. He placed the stand 5 on the south side of the house and 5 on the north. The sea he placed up to the southeast from the south side of the house. When Hiram had made the pots, shovels, and bowls, he finished all his work for King Solomon in the house of the Lord. 2 columns, 2 nodes of the capital on the top of the columns, 2 pieces of the netting covering the 2 nodes for the capital on the top of the columns. 400 pomegranates in double rows on the both pieces of the netting that covered the 2 nodes of the capital on the top of the columns. 10 stand, 10 basins on the stand, 1 seat, 12 oxen supporting the seat. Pot, shovel, and bowl, all these articles which Hiram made for the King Solomon in the house of the Lord were of the burnished bronze. The king had them cast in the neighborhood of the Jordan between Sukkot and Zaratan in thick clay mold. Solomon did not weigh all the articles because they were so numerous. The weight of the bronze therefore was not determined. Solomon made all the articles that were for the house of the Lord, the golden altar, the table on which the showbread lay, the lampstand of pure gold, 5 to the right and 5 to the left before the inner sanctuary, their flowers, the lamps, and the tongues of the gold. Basins, snowfalls, the bowls, the cups, and the fire pans of the pure gold, the hinges of the gold for the door of the innermost part of the house, or holy of the holies, or for the doors of the outer rooms, the Nael. When all the work undertaken by the King Solomon in the house of the Lord was completed, he brought in the votive offering of his father David, and put the silver, gold, and other articles in the treasuries of the house of the Lord. 1 Kings chapter 8, dedication of the temple. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the princes in the ancestral houses of the Israelites. They came to King Solomon in Jerusalem to bring up the ark of the Lord's covenant from the city of David, which is Zion. All the people of Israel assembled before King Solomon during the festival in the month of the Ethanim, the 7th month. When all the elders of Israel had arrived, the priest took up the ark, and they brought up the ark of the Lord and the tent of meeting with all the sacred vessels that were in the tent. The priest and the Levite brought them up. King Solomon and the entire community of the Israel gathered for the occasion before the ark, sacrificed the sheep and oxen too many to number or count. The priest brought the ark of the covenant of the Lord to its place, the inner sanctuary of the house, the holy of holies, beneath the wings of the cherubim. The cherubim had their wings spread out over the place of the ark, sheltering the ark and its poles from above. The poles were so long that their ends could be seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary. They cannot be seen from outside, but they remain there to this day. There was nothing in the ark but the 2 stone tablets which Moses had put there at Horeb, when the Lord made a covenant with the Israelites after they went forth from the land of Egypt. When the priest left the holy place, the cloud filled the house of the Lord. So that priest could no longer minister because of the cloud, since the glory of the Lord had filled the house of the Lord. Then Solomon said, "The Lord intends to dwell in the dark cloud. I have indeed built your princely house, the base for your enthronement forever." The king turned and blessed the whole assembly of the Israel, while the whole assembly of Israel stood. He said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who with his own mouth spoke the promise to David my father, and by his hand fulfilled it, saying, Since the day I brought my people Israel out of Egypt, I have not chosen a city out of any tribe of the Israel for the building of the house, that my name might be there, but I have chosen David to rule my people Israel. When David my father wished to build a house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel, the Lord said to him, In wishing to build a house for my name, you did well. But it is not you who will build the house, but your son who comes from your loins, he shall build the house for my name. Now the Lord has fulfilled the word he spoke. I have succeeded David my father, and I sit on the throne of the Israel, as the Lord has spoken. And I built this house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. I have provided there a place for the ark, in which in the covenant of the Lord that he made with our ancestors when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. Solomon prayed. Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of the whole assembly of the Israel, and stretching forth his hands toward heaven. He said, The Lord God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven, above or on earth below. You keep covenant and love toward your servants who walk before you with their whole hearts. The covenant that you kept toward your servant David my father, when you promised him, your mouth has spoken and your hand has fulfilled these very days. And now, Lord God of Israel, keep toward your servant David my father what you promised. There shall never be wanting someone from your line to sit before me on the throne of Israel, provided that your descendants keep to their way, walking before me as you have. Now, God of Israel, may the words you spoke to your servant David my father be confirmed. Is God indeed to dwell on earth if the heaven and the highest heavens cannot contain you? How much less this house which I built? Regard kindly the prayer and the petition of your servant, the Lord my God, and listen to the cry of the supplication which I, your servant, utter before you this day. May your eyes be open night and day toward this house, the place of which you said, my name shall be there. Listen to the prayer your servant makes toward this place. Listen to the petition of your servant and of your people Israel, which they offer toward this place. Listen from the place of your enthronement, heaven, listen and forgive. If someone sins in some way against a neighbor and is required to take on oaths sanctioned by a court, and comes and takes the oaths before your altar in this house, listen in heaven, act and judge your servant, condemn the wicked, requiting their ways, acquit the just, rewarding their justice. When your people Israel are defeated by the enemy because they sinned against you, and then they return to you, praise your name, pray to you, and entreat you in this house. Listen in heaven and forgive the sin of your people Israel, and bring them back to the land you gave their ancestors. When the heavens are closed so that there is no rain because they have sinned against you, but they pray toward this place and praise your name, and turn from their sin because you have afflicted them. Listen in heaven and forgive the sin of your servant, your people Israel, for you teach them the good way in which they should walk. Give rain to this land of yours which you have given to your people as their heritage. If there is a famine in the land on the pestilence, or if a blight becomes or mildew or locust or caterpillars, if an enemy of your people press upon them in the land and at their gate, whatever plague and sickness there may be, whatever prayer or petition any may make, any of your people Israel who know heartfelt remorse and stretch out their hands toward this house, listen in heaven, the place of your enthronement, forgive and take action. Render to each and all according to their ways. You who know every heart, for it is you alone you know the heart of every human being. So may they revere you as long as they live on the land you gave our ancestors. To the foreigners likewise who are not of your people Israel, but who come from a distant land from the sake of your name. Since people will hear of your great name and your mighty hand and your outstretched arm when they come and pray toward this house. Listen in heaven, the place of your enthronement, do all that foreigner ask of you, that all the people of the earth may know your name, may revere you as to your people Israel, and may know that your name has been invoked upon this house that I have built. When your people go out to war against their enemies by whatever ways you send them, and they pray to the Lord toward the city you have chosen and the house I have built for your name, listen in heaven to their prayer and petition, and uphold their cause. When they sin against you, for there is no one who does not sin, and in your anger against them you deliver them to an enemy, so that their captors carry them up to the land of the enemy, far or near. And they have a change of the heart in the land of their captivity, and they turn and entreat you in the land of their captors and say, you have sinned and done wrong, ye have been wicked. If with their whole heart and soul they turn back to you in the land of their enemies who took them captive, and pray to you toward the land you gave their ancestors, the city you have chosen, and the house I have built for your name. Listen in heaven, you dwelling place to their prayer and petition, and uphold their cause. Forgive your people who have sinned against you and all the offense they have committed against you, and grant them mercy in the sight of their captors, so that these will be merciful to them. For they are your people and your heritage, whom you brought out of Egypt from the midst of the iron furnace. Thus may your eyes be open to your petition of your servant and to the petition of your people Israel. Thus may you listen to them whenever they call upon you. For you have set them apart from all the people of the earth to be your heritage, as you declared through Moses your servant when you brought our ancestors out of Egypt, the Lord my God. After Solomon finished offering this entire prayer and the petition to the Lord, he rose from before the altar of the Lord, where he had been kneeling, hands outstretched toward heaven. He stood and blessed the whole assembly of the Israelites, saying in a loud voice, Blessed be the Lord who has given a rest to his people Israel, just as he promised. Not a single word has gone unfulfilled of the entire gracious promise he made through Moses his servant. May the Lord our God be with us as he was with our ancestors, and may he not forsake us nor cast us off. May he draw our heart to himself, that we may walk in his ways and keep the command, the statute, and the ordinance that he enjoined on our ancestors. May these words of mine, the petition I have offered before the Lord our God, be present to the Lord our God day and night, that he may uphold the cause of his servant and the cause of his people Israel as each day requires, so that all the people of the earth may know that the Lord is God and there is no other. Your heart must be wholly devoted to the Lord our God, observing his statute and keeping his commandment as one this day. The king and all Israel with him offered the sacrifice before the Lord. Solomon offered as a communion offering to the Lord 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. Thus the king and all Israelites dedicated the house of the Lord. On that day the king consecrated the middle of the court facing the house of the Lord. He offered there the burnt offering, the grain offering, and the fat of the communion offering, because the bronze altar before the Lord was too small to hold the burnt offering, the grain offering, and the fat of the communion offering. On this occasion, Solomon and all Israel with him, a great assembly from Lebo Hamath to the Wadi of Egypt, celebrated the festival before the Lord our God for 7 days. On the 8th day, he dismissed the people who blessed the king and went to their tents, rejoicing and glad of the heart because of all the blessing the Lord had given to David, his servant, and to his people Israel. 1 Kings chapter 9, Promise and warning to Solomon. After Solomon finished building the house of the Lord, the house of the king, and everything else that he wanted to do, the Lord appeared to Solomon a second time, as he had appeared to him in Gibeon. The Lord said to him, I have heard the prayer of the petition which you offered in my presence. I have consecrated this house which you have built, and I set my name there forever. My eyes and my heart shall be there always. As for you, if you walk before me as David your father did, wholeheartedly and uprightly, doing all that I have commanded you, keeping my statute and ordinance, I will establish your loyalty over Israel forever, as I promised David your father. There shall never be wanting someone from your line on the throne of Israel. But if ever you and your descendants turn from following me and fail to keep my commandment and the statute which I set before you, and proceed to serve other gods and bow down to them, I will cut off Israel from the land I gave them and repudiate the house I have consecrated for my name. Israel shall become proverb and byword among all nations. And this house shall become heap of the ruins. Every passerby shall gasp in horror and ask, why has the Lord done such things to this land and to this house? And the answer will come, because they abandoned the Lord their God, who brought their ancestors out of the land of Egypt, and they embraced other gods, bowing down to them and serving them. That is why the Lord has brought upon them all these evils. After building the temples, after the 20 years during which Solomon built the two houses, the house of the Lord and the house of the king, Hiram the king of the Tyre supplying Solomon with all the cedar wood, fir wood, and the gold he wished, and King Solomon giving Hiram in return 20 cities in the land of the Galilees. Hiram left the Tyre to see the cities Solomon had given him, but he was not satisfied with them. So he said, what are these cities you have given me, my brother? And he called them the land of the Gabur, as they are called to this day. Hiram, however, had sent King Solomon 120 talents of the gold. This is a account of the conscript labor forcing King Solomon raised in order to build the house of the Lord, his own house, below the wall of the Jerusalem, Hazor, Megiddo, Gezer. Pharaoh the king of Egypt had come up and taken Gezer, and after destroying it by fire and slaying all the Canaanites living in the city, had given it as a farewell gift to his daughter Solomon's wife. Solomon then rebuilt the Gezer, lowered Beth Horons, Baalas, Tamar in the desert of the Judah. All his city for supplies, the city for chariot, and the city for the cavalry, and whatever Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and in the entire land under his dominions. All the people who were left of the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, who were not Israelites. Those of their descendants who were left in the land and whom the Israelites had not been able to destroy under the ban, these Solomon conscripted as forced laborers as they are to this day. But Solomon made none of the Israelites forced laborers, for they were his fighting force, his ministers, commanders, adjutant, chariot official, and cavalry. There were 550 overseers answerable to Solomon, governor for the work, directing the people engaged in the work. As soon as the Pharaoh's daughter went up from the city of David to her house, which he had built for her, Solomon built Millo. 3 times a year Solomon used to offer burnt offering and the communion offering on the altar which he had built to the Lord, and to burn incense before the Lord. Thus he completed the temple. Solomon's gift. King Solomon also built a flat Ezion-Geber, which is near Elah, on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of the Edom. To this flat Hiram sent his own servant, expert sailors, with the servant of the Solomon. They went on the affair and obtained 420 talents of the gold and brought it to King Solomon. 1 Kings chapter 10. Solomon listening heard the queen of the Sheba. The queen of Sheba, having heard of the report of Solomon's fame, came to test him with subtle questions. She arrived in Jerusalem with a very numerous retinue and with camels bearing spices, a large amount of the gold and the precious stone. She came to Solomon and spoke to him about everything that she had on her mind. King Solomon explained everything she asked about, and there was nothing so obscure that the king could not explain it to her. When the king of Sheba witnessed Solomon's great wisdom, the house he had built, the food at his table, the sitting of his minister, attendants, and the dress of his waiters, his servants, and the burnt offering he offered in the house of the Lord, it took her breath away. The report I heard in my country about your deeds and your wisdom is true, she told the king. I did not believe the report until I came and saw with my own eyes that not even the harp had been told me. Your wisdom and prosperity surpassed the report I heard. Happy are your servant, happy this minister of yours. You stand before you, always listen to your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God, who has been pleased to place you on the throne of Israel. In his enduring love for Israel, the Lord has made you king to carry out the judgment and justice. Then she gave the king 120 gold talents, a very large quantity of the spice, and the precious stone. Never again did anyone bring such abundance of the spices as the queen of the Sheba gave to King Solomon. Hiram fleet, which used to bring gold from Ophir, also brought from there a very large quantity of the almug wood and the precious stone. With this wood, the king made the support for the house of the Lord and for the house of the king, and the harps and the lyres for the singers. Never again was any such almug wood brought or seen to the present days. King Solomon gave the king of Sheba everything she desired and asked for, besides what King Solomon gave her from Solomon's royal bounty. Then she returned with her servant to her own countries. Solomon riches, domestic affairs. The gold that came to Solomon in 1 year weighed 666 gold talents, in addition to what came from the tolls on the travelers, from the traffic of the merchant, and from all the king of the Arabia and the governor of the countries. King Solomon made 200 shields of the beaten gold, 600 shekels of the gold went into each shield, and 300 bucklers of the beaten gold, 3 minas of the gold went into each bucklers, and the king put them in the house of the forest of the Lebanon. The king made a large ivory throne and overlaid it with refined gold. The throne had 6 steps, a back with the round top, and the arm on each side of the seat, with 2 lions standing next to the arms, and 12 other lions standing there on their steps, two a step, one on either side of each step. Nothing like this was made in any other kingdoms. All King Solomon's drinking vessels were gold, and all the utensils in the house of the forest of the Lebanon was pure gold. There was no silver, for in Solomon's time silver was reckoned as nothing. For the king had a fleet of the Tarshish ship at the sea with the Hiram fleet. Once every 3 years, the fleet of the Tarshish ship would come with a cargo of gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Solomon renowned. This King Solomon surpassed all the kings of the earth in riches and wisdom, and the whole world sought the audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put into his heart. They all brought their yearly tribute, the vessel of the silver and the gold, the garment, the weapons, the spices, the horses, and the mules. What was due its ears? Solomon riches, the chariot, and the horses. Solomon amassed the chariot and horses. He had 1,400 chariot and 12,000 horses. These he allocated among the chariot cities and to the king's service in Jerusalem. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedars as numerous as the sycamores of the Shephelah. Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt and from Cilicia, where the king's merchants purchased them. A chariot imported from Egypt cost 600 shekels of the silver, a horse 150 shekels. They were exported at this rate to all the Hittite and Aramean kings. 1 Kings chapter 11, the end of the Solomon reign. King Solomon loved many foreign women besides the daughter of the Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonians, Hittite. From nation of which the Lord has said to the Israelites, you shall not join with them, and they shall not join with you, lest they turn your heart to their God. But Solomon held them close in love. He had as wives 700 princes and 300 concubines, and they turned his heart. When Solomon was old, his wives had turned his heart to follow other gods, and his heart was not entirely with the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. Solomon followed the Astarte, the goddess of the Sidonian, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonite. Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he did not follow the Lord unreligiously as David his father had done. Solomon then built the high place to the Chemosh, the abomination of the Moab, and to the Molech, the abomination of the Ammonites, on the mountain opposite Jerusalem. He did the same for all his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrificed to their God. The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice, and commanded him not to do these very things, not to follow other gods, but he did not observe what the Lord commanded. So the Lord said to Solomon, since this is the what you want, and you have not kept my covenant and the statute which I enjoined on you, I will surely tear the kingdom away from you and give it to your servant. But I will not do this during your lifetime. For the sake of the David your father, I will tear it away from your son's hand. Nor will I tear away the whole kingdom. I will give your son one trial for the sake of the David my servant, and for the sake of the Jerusalem which I have chosen. Treat to Solomon kingdom. The Lord then raised on the adversary against Solomon Hadad the Edomite, who was of the royal line in Edom. Earlier, when David had conquered Edom, Joab, the commander of the army, while going to the battle, slain, killed every male in Edom. Joab and all Israel remained there 6 months until they had killed off every male in Edom. But Hadad, with some Edomite servant of his father, fled toward Egypt. Hadad was then a young boy. They left Midian and came to Paran. They gathered men from Paran and came to Egypt, to Pharaoh king of Egypt. He gave Hadad a house, appointed him relations, and assigned him land. Hadad won great favor with Pharaoh, so that he gave him in marriage his sister-in-law, the sister of the king Tahpenes, his own wife. Tahpenes' sister bore Hadad a son, Genobaz. Tahpenes win him in the Pharaoh palace, and Genobaz lived in the Pharaoh house with the Pharaoh's own sons. When Hadad in Egypt heard that David rested with his ancestors and that Joab, the commander of the army, was dead, he said to Pharaoh, Give me leave to return to my own land. Pharaoh said to him, What do you lack with me that you are seeking to return to your own land? He answered, Nothing, but please let me go. God raised up against Solomon another adversary, Rezin, the son of the Eliada, who had fled from his lord Hadad-Dizor, king of the Zobar. When David was slaughtering them, Rezin gathered men about him and became rid of the marauding band. They went to the Damascus, settled there, and made him king in Damascus. Rezin was an adversary of Israel as long as Solomon lived, in addition to harm done by Hadad. And he felt contempt for Israel. He became king over Aram. Isaiah announced Jeroboam's kingship. Solomon had a servant Jeroboam, son of the Nebat, an Ephraimite from Jerodah, without widowed mother named Jeruah. He rebelled against the king. This is how he came to rebel. King Solomon was building Millo, closing up the breach of the city of David his father. Jeroboam was a very able man, and when Solomon saw that the young man was also a good worker, he put him in charge of all carriers conscripted from the house of Joseph. At that time, Jeroboam left Jerusalem, and the prophet Isaiah the Shilonite met him on the road. The prophet was wearing a new cloak, and when the two were alone in the open countries, Isaiah took up his new cloak, tore it into 12 pieces, and said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 pieces for yourself. Thus said the Lord, the God of Israel, I am about to tear the kingdom out of the Solomon's hand, and will give you 10 of the tribes. He shall have 1 tribe for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city I have chosen out of all tribes of Israel. For they have forsaken me and have bowed down to the Astarte, goddess of the Sidonian, Chemosh, god of the Moab, and Milcom, god of the Ammonite. They have not walked in my ways or done what is right in my eyes, according to my statute and my ordinance, as David his father did. Yet I will not take any of the kingdom from Solomon himself, but will keep him a prince as long as he lives, for the sake of David my servant, whom I have chosen, who kept my commandment and statutes. But I will take the kingdom from his son's hand and give it to you, that is the 10 tribes. I will give his son 1 tribe, that David my servant may always have a holding before me in Jerusalem, the city I have chosen to set my name there. You I will take, and you shall reign over all that you desire, and shall become king of Israel. If then you heed all that I command you, walking in my ways, and do what is right in my eyes by keeping my statute and my commandment like David my servant, I will be with you. I will build a resting house for you, just as I did for David. I will give Israel to you. I will humble David's line for this, but not forever." When Solomon tried to have Jeroboam killed, Jeroboam fled to the Shishak, king of Egypt. He remained in Egypt until Solomon's death. The rest of the act of Solomon, with all that he did and his wisdom, are recorded in the book of the Act of Solomon. Solomon was king in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. Solomon rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David, his father, and Rehoboam his son succeeded him as king. 1 Kings chapter 20, political disunities. Rehoboam went to Shechem, where all Israel had come to make him king. When Jeroboam, son of the Nebat, heard about it, he was still in Egypt. He had fled from King Solomon and remained in Egypt. And they sent for him. Then Jeroboam and the whole assembly of Israel came, and they said to Rehoboam, "Your father put heavy yoke on us. If you now lighten the harsh servitude and the heavy yoke your father imposed on us, we will be your servant." He answered them, "Come back to me in 3 days," and the people went away. King Rehoboam asked advice of the elder who had been in his father Solomon's service while he was alive, and asked, "How do you advise me to answer these people?" They replied, "If today you become the servant of these people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will be your servant forever." But he ignored the advice the elder had given him and asked advice of the young men who had grown up with him and were in his service. He said to them, "What answer do you advise that we should give these people who had told me, lighten the yoke your father imposed on us?" The young man who had grown up with him replied, "This is what you must say to these people who had told you. Your father made our yoke heavy. You lighten it for us. You must say, my little finger is thicker than my father's loins. My father put a heavy yoke on you, but I will make it heavier. My father beat you with whips, but I will beat you with scorpions." Jeroboam and the whole people come back to King Rehoboam on 3 days, as the king had instructed them, "Come back to me in 3 days." Ignoring the advice the elder had given him, the king gave the people harsh answers. He spoke to them as the young man had advised. "My father made your yoke heavy, but I'll make it heavier. My father beat you with whips, but I'll beat you with scorpions." The king did not listen to the people, for this turn of the event was from the Lord. He had fulfilled the word the Lord had spoken through Isaiah the Shilonite to Jeroboam, son of Nebat. When all Israel saw the king did not listen to them, the people answered the king, "What share have we in David? We have no heritage in the son of Jesse. To your tent, Israel. Now look to your own house, David." So Israel went out to their tent. But Rehoboam continued to reign over the Israelites who lived in the city of the Judah. King Rehoboam then sent out Adoram, who was in charge of the forced labor, but all Israel stoned him to death. King Rehoboam then managed to mount his chariot and flee to Jerusalem. And so Israel has been in a rebellion against the house of David to this day. When all Israel heard that Jeroboam had returned, they summoned him to an assembly and made him king over all Israel. None remained royal to the house of David except the tribe of Judah alone. Divine approval. On his arrival in Jerusalem, Rehoboam assembled on the house of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin 180,000 elite warriors to wage war against the house of Israel, to restore the kingdom to Rehoboam, son of Solomon. However, the word of God came to Shemaiah, a man of God. "Say to Rehoboam, son of Solomon, king of Judah, and to all house of Judah, and to Benjamin, and to the rest of the people. Thus said the Lord, you must not go out to the war against your fellow Israelites. Return home, each of you, for it is I who have brought this about." They obeyed the word of the Lord and turned back according to the word of the Lord. Jeroboam built up Shechem in his country of Ephraim and lived there. Then he left it and built up Penuel. Jeroboam's cultic innovation. Jeroboam thought to himself, "Now the kingdom will return to the house of David. If these people go up to the offer sacrifice in the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, the heart of these people will return to their master, Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they will kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah." The king took counsel, made 2 calves of the gold, and said to the people, "You have been going up to Jerusalem long enough. Here are your God, O Israel, who brought you out from the land of Egypt." And he put one in Bethel, the other in Dan. This led to sin because the people frequented these calves in the Bethel in Dan. He also built the temple on the high place and made the priests from among the common people who were not Levite. Divine disapproval. Jeroboam established a feast in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, like the pilgrimage feast in Judah, and he went up to the altar. He did this in Bethel, sacrificing to the calves he had made. He stationed in Bethel the priest of the high place he had built. Jeroboam went up to the altar he built in the Bethel on the 15th day of the 18th month. The month of the arbitraries chose. He established a feast for the Israelites, and he went up to the altar to burn incense. 1 King chapter 13. A man of God came from Judah to Bethel by the word of the Lord while Jeroboam was standing at the altar to burn incense. He cried out against the altar by the word of the Lord, Altar, altar, thus says the Lord, a child shall be born to the house of the David. Josiah by name, who shall slaughter upon you the priests of the high places who burn incense upon you, and they shall burn human bones upon you. He also gave a sign that same day and said, This is the sign that the Lord has spoken. The altar shall be torn apart and the ashes on it shall be scattered. When the king heard the word of the man of God, which he was crying out against the altar in Bethel, Jeroboam stretched forth his hand from the altar and said, Seize him, but the hand he stretched forth against him withered so that he could not draw it back. The altar was torn apart and the ashes from the altar was scattered in accordance with the sign the man of God gave by the word of the Lord. Then the king said to the man of God, Entreat the Lord your God and intercede for me that my hand may be restored. So the man of God entreated the Lord, and the king's hand was restored as it was before. The king told the man of God, Come with me to house for some refreshment so that I may give you a present. The man of God said to the king, If you gave me half your palace, I would not go with you, nor eat bread or drink water in this place. For I was instructed by the word of the Lord, Do not eat bread or drink water, and do not return by the way you came. So it departed by another road and did not go back the way he had come to Bethel. Prophetic disunities. There was an old prophet living in Bethel, whose son came and told him all that the man of God had done that day in Bethel. When his son repeated to their father the words the man of God had spoken to the kings, the father asked them which day did he go, so his son pointed out to him the road taken by the man of God who had come from Judah. Then he said to his sons, Saddle the donkey for me. When they had saddled it, he mounted, and followed the man of God whom he had found seated under a terebinth. When he asked him, Are you in the man of God who came from Judah? He answered, Yes. Then he said, Come home with me and have some bread. I cannot return with you or go with you, and I cannot eat bread or drinking water with you in this place, he answered. For I was told by the word of the Lord, You shall not eat bread or drink water there, and do not go back the way you came. But he said to him, I too am a prophet like you, and the angel told me by the word of the Lord, Bring him back with you to the house to eat bread and drinking water. But he was lying to him. So he went back with him and ate bread and drank water in his house. But while they were sitting at table, the word of the Lord came to the prophet who had brought him back. And he cried out to the man of God who had come from Judah, Thus says the Lord, because you rebelled against the charge of the Lord and did not keep the command which the Lord your God gave you, but returned and ate bread and drank water in the place where he told you, Do not eat bread or drink water. Your corpse shall not be brought to the grave of your ancestors. After he had eaten bread and drunk, they saddled for him the donkey that belonged to the prophet who had brought him back. And he set out, but a lion met him on the road and killed him. His body lay sprawled on the road, and the donkey remained standing by it, and so did the lion. Some passersby saw the body lying in the road with the lion standing beside it, and carried the news to the city where the old prophet lived. On hearing it, the prophet who had brought him back from his journey said, "It is the man of God who rebelled against the charge of the Lord. The Lord has delivered him to a lion which mangled and killed him, according to the word which the Lord had spoken to him." Then he said to his sons, "Saddle the donkey for me," and they saddled it. He went out and found the body sprawled on the road with the donkey and the lion standing beside it. The lion had not eaten the body, nor had it harmed the donkeys. The prophet lifted up the body of the man of God and put it on the donkey and brought him back to the city to mourn and to bury him. He laid the man's body in his own grave, and they mourned over it. "Alas, my brothers." After he had buried him, he said to his sons, "When I die, bury me in the grave where the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his." For the war which he proclaimed by the word of the Lord against the altar in the Bethel and against all the temple on the high place in the city of the Samaria shall certainly come to pass. Even after this, Jeroboam did not turn from his evil way, but again made the priest for the high place from among the common peoples. Whoever desired it was installed as a priest of the high places. This is the account of the sin of the house of the Jeroboam, for which it was to be cut off and destroyed from the face of the earth. On 1 Kings chapter 14, Isaiah announced Jeroboam's downfall. At that time, Abijah son of the Jeroboam took sick. So Jeroboam said to his wife, "Go and disguise yourself so that no one will recognize you as Jeroboam's wife. Then go to Shiloh, where you will find Isaiah the prophet. It was he who spoke the word that made me king over these peoples. Take along 10 loaves, some cakes, and a jar of the honey, and go to him. He will tell you what will happen to the child." The wife of the Jeroboam did so. She left and went to Shiloh and came to the house of the Isaiah. Now Isaiah could not see, because age had dimmed his sight. But the Lord said to Isaiah, "Jeroboam's wife is coming to consult you about her son, for he is sick. Thus and so you must tell her, when she comes, she will be in disguise." So Isaiah, hearing the sound of her footsteps as she entered the door, said, "Come in, wife of Jeroboam, why are you in disguise? For my part, I have been commissioned to give you bitter news. Go tell Jeroboam, thus said the Lord, the God of Israel, I exalted you from among the people and made you ruler of my people Israel. I tore the kingdom away from the house of David and gave it to you, yet you have not been like my servant David, who kept my commandment and followed me with his whole heart, doing only what is right in my sight. You have done more evil than all who were before you. You gave God and made for yourself other gods and molten images to provoke me, but me you have cast behind your back. Therefore I am bringing evil upon the house of the Jeroboam. I'll cut off from Jeroboam's line every male born or free in Israel. I'll burn up what is left of the house of the Jeroboam, as dung is burned completely. Anyone of the Jeroboam line who dies in the city, dogs will devour. Anyone who dies in the field, the birds of the sky will devour. For the Lord has spoken. As for you, leave and go home. As you step inside the city, the child will die. And Israel will mourn him and bury him, for he alone of the Jeroboam line will be laid in the grave, since in him alone of the Jeroboam house has something pleasing to the Lord, the God of Israel, been found. The Lord will raise up for himself a king over Israel, who will cut off the house of the Jeroboam today at this very moment. The Lord will strike Israel like a reed tossed about in the water, and will pluck out Israel from this good land which he gave their ancestors, and will scatter them beyond the river, because they made Asherahs for themselves, provoking the Lord. He will give up Israel because of this sin Jeroboam has committed and caused Israel to commit. So Jeroboam's wife left and went back. When she came to Tirzah and crossed the threshold of the house, the child died. He was buried and all Israel mourned him according to the word of the Lord spoken through his servant Isaiah the prophet. The rest of the act of the Jeroboam, how he fought and how he reigned, these are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the King of the Israel. The ranks of the Jeroboam reign was 22 years. He rested with his ancestor, and Nadab his son succeeded him as king. Reign of the Rehoboam. Rehoboam, son of the Solomon, became king of the Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he became king, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city in which out of the whole tribe of the Israel, the Lord chose to set his name. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite. Judah did evil in the Lord's sight, and they angered him even more than their ancestors had done. They too built for themselves a high place, sacred pillars, and Asherahs upon every high hill and under every green tree. There was also pagan priest in the land. Judah imitated all the abominable practice of the nation, whom the Lord had driven out of the Israelite ways. In the 5th year of the king Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, attacked Jerusalem. He took everything, including the treasure of the house of the Lord and the treasure of the house of the king, even the gold shield Solomon has made. To replace them, King Rehoboam made the bronze shield, which he entrusted to the official of the guard on duty at the entrance of the royal house. Whenever the king visited the house of the Lord, those on duty would carry the shields and then return them to the guard rooms. The rest of the act of the Rehoboam, with all that he did, are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the Kings of the Judah. There was a war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all their days. Rehoboam rested with his ancestor. He was buried with his ancestor in the city of David. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite. His son Abijam succeeded him as king. 1 Kings chapter 15, reign of the Abijam. In the 18th year of the king Jeroboam, son of the Nebat, Abijam became king of the Judah. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of the Absalom. He followed all the sins his father had committed before him, and his heart was not entirely with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. Yet for David's sake, the Lord his God gave him a holding in Jerusalem, raising up his son after him and permitting Jerusalem to endure. Because David had done what was right in the sight of the Lord and did not disobey any of his commands as long as he lived, except in the case of the Uriah the Hittite. There was a war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all their days. The rest of the act of the Abijam, with all that he did, are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the King of the Judah. There was a war between Abijam and Jeroboam. Abijam rested with his ancestor. They buried him in the city of David, and his son Asa succeeded him as king. Reign of Asa. In the 20th year of the Jeroboam, king of the Israel, Asa, king of the Judah, became king. He reigned 41 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of the Absalom. Asa did what was right in the sight of the Lord, like David his father, banishing the pagan priests from the land and removing all the idols his ancestors had made. He also deposed his grandmother Maacah from her position as queen mother because she had made an outrageous object for Asherah. Asa cut down this object and buried it in the Wadi Kidron. The high place did not disappear, yet Asa's heart was entirely with the Lord as long as he lived. He brought into the house of the Lord his father and his own votive offering of the silver and the gold and the various vessels. There was a war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, all their days. Baasha, king of Israel, attacked Judah and fortified Ramah to blockade Asa, king of Judah. Asa then took all the silver and gold remaining in the treasure of the house of the Lord and the house of the kings. Entrusting them to his minister, King Asa sent him to the Ben-Hadad, son of the Tabrimon, son of the Haziel, king of the Aram, who ruled in Damascus. He said, "There is a treaty between you and me, as there was between your father and my father. I am sending you a present of the silver and gold. Go break your treaty with Baasha, king of Israel, that he may withdraw from me." Ben-Hadad agreed with King Asa and sent rid of his troops against the city of Israel. They attacked Ejon, Dan, Abel-Beth-Makkah, and all Chinorites, beside all the land of the Naphtalites. When Baasha heard of it, he left up the fortifying Ramah and stayed in Tirzah. Then King Asa summoned all Judah without the exception, and they carried away the stone and the beams with which the Baasha was fortifying Ramah. With them King Asa built the Geba of the Benjamin and the Mizpah. All the rest of the act of the Asa, with all his valor and all that he did, and the city he built, are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the king of the Judah. But in his old age, Asa had an infirmity in his feet. Asa rested with his ancestor. He was buried with his ancestor in the city of David, his father. And his son Jehoshaphat succeeded him as king. Reign of the Nadab. Nadab, son of the Jeroboam, became king of Israel in the second year of the Asa, king of Judah. For 2 years he reigned over Israel. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, working in the way of his father and the sin he had caused Israel to commit. Baasha, son of the Izar of the house of the Issachar, plotted against him and struck him down at the Gibbethon of the Philistine, which Nadab and all Israel were besieging. Baasha killed him in the 3rd year of the Asa, king of Judah, and succeeded him as king. Once he was king, he killed the entire house of the Jeroboam, not leaving a single soul, but destroying Jeroboam utterly, according to the word of the Lord spoken through his servant Isaiah the Shilonite. Because of the sin Jeroboam committed and caused Israel to commit, by which he provoked the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger. The rest of the act of the Nadab, with all that he did, are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the king of Israel. There was a war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, all their days. Reign of the Baasha. In the 3rd year of the Asa, king of Judah, Baasha, son of the Izar, became king of all Israel in Tirzah for 24 years. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, working in the way of the Jeroboam and the sin he had caused Israel to commit. 1 Kings chapter 16. The word of the Lord came to Jehu, son of the Hanani, against Baasha. Inasmuch as I exalted you from the dust and made you ruler of my people Israel, but you have walked in the way of the Jeroboam and have caused my people Israel to sin, provoking me to anger by their sins. I'll burn up what is left on the Baasha and his house. I'll make your house like that of Jeroboam, son of the Nebat. One of the Baasha line who died in the city, dogs will devour. One who dies in the field, the birds of the sky will devour. The rest of the act of the Baasha, what he did and his valor are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the King of the Israel. Baasha rested with his ancestor. He was buried in Tirzah, and his son Elah succeeded him as king. Through the prophet Jehu, son of the Hanani, the word of the Lord came against Baasha and his house because of all the evil Baasha did in the sight of the Lord, provoking him the anger by his deeds, so that he became like the house of the Jeroboam, and because of what he destroyed. Reign of the Elah. In the 26th year of the Asa, king of the Judah, Elah, son of the Baasha, became king of the Israel in the Tirzah for 2 years. His servant Zimri, the commander of the half his chariot, plotted against him as he was in Tirzah, drinking to excess in the house of the Arzah, master of his palace in Tirzah. Zimri entered, he struck and killed him in the 27th year of the Asa, king of the Judah, and succeeded him as king. Once he was king, seated on the throne, he killed the whole house of the Baasha, not sparing a single male relative or friend of his. Zimri destroyed the entire house of the Baasha, according to the word the Lord spoke against the Baasha through Jehu the prophet. Because of all the sins which Baasha and his son Elah committed and caused Israel to commit, provoking the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger by their idols. The rest of the act of the Elah with all that he did are recorded in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of the Israel. Reign of the Zimri. In the 27th year of the Asa, king of Judah, Zimri became king for 7 days in Tirzah. The army was encamped at the Gibbeton of the Philistines. When they heard that Zimri has formed the conspiracy and has killed the king, so that they in the camp all Israel made Omni, commander of the army, king of Israel. Omni and all Israel with him marched up from Gibbeton and besieged Tirzah. When Zimri saw that the city was captured, he entered the citadel of the king's house and burned it down over him. He died. Because of the sin he had committed, doing what was evil the Lord's sight by walking in the way of the Jeroboam, and the sin he had caused Israel to commit. The rest of the act of the Zimri with the conspiracy he carried out are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the Kings of the Israel. Civil War. At that time, the people of Israel were divided into half following Tifni, son of the Ginath, to make him king, and half for Omni. The partition of the Omni prevailed over those of the Tifni, son of the Ginath. Tifni died and the Omni became kings. Reign of the Omnis. In the 31st year of the Asa, king of the Judah, Omni became king of Israel for 12 years. The first 6 of them he reigned in Tirzah. He then brought the mountain of the Samaria from the Shalom for 2 silver talents and built upon the mountain the city he named Samaria, after Shimon the former owners. But Omni did what was evil in the Lord's sight more than any of his predecessors. In every way he imitated the sinful conduct of the Jeroboam, son of the Nebat, and the sin he had caused Israel to commit, thus provoking the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger by their idols. The rest of the act of the Omni, what he did and his valor, are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the Kings of the Israel. Omni rested with his ancestors. He was buried in Samaria, and Ahab, his son, succeeded him as king. Reign of the Ahab. Ahab, son of the Omni, became king of the Israel in the 38 years of the Asa, king of the Judah. Ahab, son of the Omni, reigned over Israel in Samaria for 22 years. Ahab, son of the Omni, did what was evil in the Lord's sight more than any of his predecessors. It was not enough for him to follow the sin of the Jeroboam, son of the Nebat. He even married the Jezebel, daughter of the Etabar, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him. Ahab set up an altar to Baal in the house of the Baal, which he built in Samaria, and also made the Asherah. Ahab did more to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger than any of the king of the Israel before him. During his reign, he erred from Bethel, rebuilt Jericho. At the cost of the Abiram, his firstborn son, he laid the foundation, and at the cost of the Sigur, his youngest son, he set up the gate, according to the word of the Lord spoken through Joshua, son of Nun. 1 Kings chapter 17, Elijah proclaims a drought. Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, As the Lord the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, during these years there shall be no dew or rain except at my words. The word of the Lord came to Elijah, Live here, go east and hide in the Wadi Charis, east of the Jordan. You shall drink of the Wadi, and I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. So he left and did as the Lord had commanded. He left and remained by the Wadi Charis, east of the Jordan. Ravens brought him a bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the wadi. After some time, however, the wadi ran dry because no rain had fallen in the land. So the word of the Lord came to him. Arise, go to Zarephath of the Sidon and stay there. I have commanded the widow there to feed you. He arose and went to Zarephath. When he arrived at the entrance of the city, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called out to her, Please bring me a small cupful of the water to drink. She left to get it, and he called out after her, Please bring along the crust of the bread. She said, As the Lord your God lives, I have nothing baked. There is only a handful of the flour in my jar and a little oil in my jug. Just now I was collecting a few sticks to go in and prepare something for myself and my son. When we have eaten it, we shall die. Elijah said to her, Do not be afraid, go and do as you have said, but first make me a little cake and bring it to me. Afterwards you can prepare something for yourself and your son. For the Lord the God of Israel says, The jar of the flour shall not go empty, nor the jug of the oil run dry, until the day when the Lord sends rain upon the earth. She left and did as Elijah had said. She had enough to eat for a long time, he and she and her household. The jar of the flour did not go empty, nor the jug of the oil run dry, according to the words of the Lord spoken through Elijah. Sometime later, the son of the woman, the owner of the house, fell sick, and his sickness grew more severe until he stopped breathing. So she said to Elijah, Why have you done this to me, man of God? Have you come to me to call attention to my guilt and to kill my son? Elijah said to her, Give me your son. Taking him from her lap, he carried him to the upper room where he was staying and laid him on his own bed. He called out to the Lord my God, will you afflict even the widow with whom I am staying by killing her son? Then he stretched himself out upon the child 3 times, and he called out to the Lord my God, let me the life breath return to the body of this child. The Lord heard the prayer of Elijah, the life of the breath returned to the child's body, and he lived. Taking the child, Elijah carried him down into the house from the upper room and gave him to his mother. Elijah said, See, your son is alive. The woman said to Elijah, Now I know that you are a man of God, and it is truly the word of the Lord that you speak. 1 Kings chapter 18, Elijah and the drought. Long afterward, in the third year, the word of the Lord came to Elijah, Go present yourself to Ahab, that I may send rain upon the earth. So Elijah went to present himself to Ahab. Now the famine in Samaria was severe. And Ahab had summoned Obadiah, master of his palace, who greatly revered the Lord. When Jezebel was slaughtering the prophet of the Lord, Obadiah took 100 prophets, hid them away by 50 in caves, and supplied them with food and wars. Ahab said to Obadiah, Go through the land to all sources of the water and to all wadis. We may find the grass and keep the horses and the mules alive, so that we shall not have to slaughter any of the beasts. Dividing the land to explore between them, Ahab went one way by himself, Obadiah another way by himself. As Obadiah was on his way, Elijah met him, recognized him. Obadiah fell prostrate and asked, Isn't you my lord Elijah? He said to him, Yes, go tell your lord Elijah is here. But Obadiah said, What sin has your servant committed, that you are handing me over to Ahab to be killed? As the Lord your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom where my Lord has not sent in search of you. When they replied, He is not here, he made each kingdom and the nation swear they could not find you. And now you say, Go tell your Lord Elijah is here. After I leave you, the Spirit of the Lord will carry you to some place I do not know. And when I go to inform Ahab and he does not find you, he will kill me, though your servant has revealed the Lord from his youth. Have you not been told, my Lord, what I did when Jezebel was murdering the prophet of the Lord, that I hid 100 of the prophet of the Lord, 50 each in caves, and supplied them with food and water? And now you say, Go tell your Lord, Elijah is here, he will kill me. Elijah answered, As the Lord of the host lives, whom I serve, I present myself to him today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and informed him, and Ahab came to meet Elijah. When Ahab saw Elijah, he said to him, Is it you, you disturber of the Israel? He answered, It is not I who disturb Israel, but you and your father's house, by forsaking the command of the Lord, and you by following the Baals. Now summon on Israel to me on Mount Carmel, as well as the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of the Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's tables. So Ahab summoned all the Israelites and had the prophets gather on Mountain Carmel. Elijah approached all the people and said, How long will you still rattle the issue? If the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal, follow him. But the people did not answer him. So Elijah said to the people, I am the only remaining prophet of the Lord, and there are 450 prophets of Baal. Give us 2 young bulls, let them choose one, cut it into pieces, and place it on the wood, but start no fire. I shall prepare the other and place it on the wood, but shall start no fire. You shall call upon the name of your God, and I will call upon the name of the Lord. The God who answered with a fire is God. All the people answered, We agree. Elijah then said to prophet of the Baal, Choose 1 young bull and prepare it first. For there are more of you. You call upon your gods, but do not start the fire. Taking the young bull that was turned over to them, they prepared it and called upon Baal from morning to noon, saying, Baal, answer us. But there was no sound and no one answering, and they hopped around the altar they had prepared. When it was noon, Elijah told them, Call louder, for he is a god. He may be busy doing his business or maybe on journey. Perhaps he is asleep and must be awakened. They called out aloud and slashed themselves with the sword and the spears according to their ritual until blood gushed over them. Noon passed and they remained in a prophetic state until the time for the offering sacrifice, but there was no sound, no one answering, no one listening. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come here to me." When they drew near to him, he repaired the altar of the Lord which had been destroyed. He took 12 stones for the number of the tribe of the son of Jacob, to whom the Lord had said, "Israel shall be your name." He built the stone into the altar to the name of the Lord and made the trench around the altar was enough for 2 measures of grains. When he had arranged the wood, he cut up the young bull and laid it on the wood. He said, "Fill 4 jars with water and pour it over the burnt offering and over the wood." "Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a 3rd time," he said, and they did it a 3rd time. The water flowed around the altar, even the trench was filled with the water. At the time for the offering sacrifice, Elijah the prophet came forward and said, "Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, that these people may know that you, Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back to you." The Lord of fire came down and devoured the burnt offering, wood, stone, and dust, and lapped up the water in the trench. Seeing this, all the people fell prostrate and said, "The Lord is God, the Lord is God." Then Elijah said to them, "Seize the prophet of the Baal, let none of them escape." They seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the Wadi Kishon, and there he slaughtered them. Elijah then said to Ahab, "Go up, eat and drink, for there is the sound of the heavy rain." So Ahab went up to the eat and drink, while Elijah went up to the top of the Carmels, crouched down to the earth, and put his head between his knees. He said to his servant, "Go up the lookout to see." He went up and looked, but reported, "There is nothing." 7 times he said, "Go look again." And the 7th time the youth reported, "There is a cloud as small as a man's hand rising from the sea." Elijah said, "Go and say to Ahab, harness up and go down the mountain before the rain stops you." All at once the sky grew dark with the cloud and the wind, and the heavy rain fell. Ahab mounted his chariot and headed for Jezreel. But the hand of the Lord was on Elijah. He girded up his clothing and ran before Ahab as far as the approach to Jezreel. 1 Kings chapter 19, Fight to Horeb. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, that he had murdered all the prophets by the sword. Jezebel then sent a messenger to Elijah and said, "May the God do thus to me and more, if by this time tomorrow I am not done with your life, what was done to each of them." Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. Going to Beersheba of Judah, he left his servant there, and went a day's journey into the wilderness until he came to a solitary broom tree and sat beneath it. He prayed for death. "Enough, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors." He lay down and fell asleep under the solitary broom trees, but suddenly a messenger touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked, and there at his head was a horse cake and a jug of the water. After he ate and drank, he lay down again. But the angel of the Lord came back a 2nd time, touched him, and said, "Get up and eat, and the journey will be too much for you." He got up, ate, and drank. Then, strengthened by that food, he walked 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain of the God Horeb. There he came to a cave where he took shelter, but the word of the Lord came to him, "Why are you here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been most zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, but the Israelites have forsaken your covenant. They have destroyed your altar and murdered your prophet by the sword. I alone remain, and they seek to take my life." Then the Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. The Lord will pass by." There was a strong and violent wind rending the mountain and crushing a rock before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. After the fire, a light, silent sound. When he heard this, Elijah hid his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. A voice said to him, "Why are you here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have been most zealous for the Lord, the God of the host, but the Israelites have forsaken your covenant. They have destroyed your altars and murdered your prophet by the sword. I alone remain, and they seek to take my life." The Lord said to him, "Go back, take the desert road to Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king of Aram. You shall also anoint Jehu son of the Nimshi as king of Israel, and Elisha son of the Shaphat of the Abel Melohah as prophet to succeed you. Anyone who escaped the sword of the Hazael, Jehu will kill. Anyone who escaped the sword of the Jehu, Elisha will kill. But I will spare 7,000 in the Israel, every knee that has not bent to the bar, every mouth that has not kissed him." Elijah set out and came upon Elisha, son of the Shaphat, as he was ploughing with the 12 yoke of the oxen. He was following the 12. Elijah went over to him and threw his cloak on him. Elisha left the oxen, ran after Elijah, and said, "Please let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, and I'll follow you." Elijah answered, "Go back. What have I done to you?" Elisha left him, and taking the yoke of the oxen, slaughtered them. He used the ploughing equipment for fuel to boil their flesh, and gave it to the people to eat. Then he left and followed Elijah to serve him. 1 Kings chapter 20, Ahab's victory over Aram. Ben-Hadad, king of the Aram, gathered all his forces and accompanied by 32 kings with horses and charioteers, set out to besiege and attack Samaria. He sent the messenger to Ahab, king of Israel, within the city, and said to him, "This is the Ben-Hadad message. Your silver and gold are mine, and your wives and your fine children are mine." The king of Israel answered, "Just as you say, my lord king, I and all I have are yours." But the messenger came again and said, "This is Ben-Hadad's message. I sent you word. Give me your silver and gold, your wives and your children. But now I say, at this time tomorrow I will send my servant to you, and they shall ransack your house and the houses of your servant. They shall seize and take away whatever you consider valuable." The king of Israel then summoned all the elders of the land and said, "Understand clearly that this man is intent on evil. When he sent to me for my wives and children, my silver and my gold, I did not refuse him." All the elders and all the people said to him, "Do not listen, do not give in." Accordingly, he directed the messenger of the Ben-Hadad, "Say this to my lord the king, I will do all that you demand of your servant the first time. But this I cannot do." The messenger left and reported this. Ben-Hadad then responded, "May the God do this to me and more, if there will remain enough just in Samaria to make handfuls for all my followers." The king of Israel replied, "Tell him, let not one put on armor boast like one who takes it off." Ben-Hadad was drinking in the pavilions with the king when he heard this reply. he commanded his servant, get ready, and they got ready to storm the city. Then the prophet came to Ahab, king of Israel, and said, The Lord said, Do you see all this vast army? Today I am giving it into your power, that you may know that I am the Lord. But Ahab asked, Through whom will it be given over? He answered, The Lord says, Through the aid of the provincial governors. Then Ahab asked, Who is to attack? He replied, You are. So Ahab mustered the aides of the provincial governors, 232 of them. Behind them he mustered all the Israelite soldiers, who numbered 7,000 in all. They marched out at noon while Ben-Hadad was drinking heavily in the pavilion with the 32 kings who were his allies. When the aid of the provincial governors marched out first, Ben-Hadad received word, Some men have marched out of the Samaria. He answered, Whether they have come out for peace or for war, take them alive. But when these had come out of the city, the aid of the provincial governors with the army following them. Each of them struck down his men. The Arameans fled with Israel pursuing them, while Ben-Hadad, king of the Aram, escaped on a chariot horse. Then the king of Israel went out and destroyed the horses and the chariot. Thus he inflicted a severe defeat on Aram. Then the prophet approached the king of Israel and said to him, Go regroup your forces, understand clearly what you must do, for at the turning of the year the king of the Aram will attack you. Meanwhile, the servant of the king of the Aram said to him, Their gods are mountain gods. That is why they defeat us. But if we fight them on the level ground, we shall be sure to defeat them. This is what you must do. Take the kings from the post and put prefect in their places. Raise an army as large as the army you have lost, horse for horse, chariot for chariot. Let us fight them on the level ground, and we shall surely defeat them. He took their advice and did this. At the turning of the year, Ben-Hadad mustered Aram and went up to the Aphek to fight against Israel. The Israelites too were mustered and supplied with provisions, and then they went out to meet the enemies. The Israelites encamped opposite looked like the little flock of the goat, while Aram covered the land. A man of God approached and said to the king of Israel, The Lord says, Because Aram has said the Lord is God of the mountains, not a God of the plains, I will give all this vast army into your power, that you may know I am the Lord. They were encamped opposite each other for 7 days. On the 7th day, the battle was joined. And the Israelites struck down 100,000 foot soldiers of the Aram in 1 day. The survivors fled into the city of the Aphek, where the wall collapsed. 127,000 of them. Ben-Hadad too fled and took refuge with the city in an inner room. His servants said to him, We have heard that the king of the house of Israel are merciful kings. Allow us therefore to garb ourselves in sackcloth, with cords around our heads, and go out to the king of Israel. Perhaps he will spare your life. Dressed in sackcloth, girded at the waist, and wearing cords around their heads, they went to the king of Israel and said, Your servant Ben-Hadad says, Spare my life. He asked, Is he still alive? He is my brother. Hearing this as a good omen, the man quickly took him at his word and said, Ben-Hadad is your brother. He answered, Go and get him. When Ben-Hadad came out to him, the king had him mount his chariot. Ben-Hadad said to him, The city my father took from your father I will destroy, and you may set up bazaars for yourself in Damascus, as my father did in Samaria. Ahab replied, For my part, I set you free on those terms. So he made a covenant with him and then set him free. Prophetic condemnation. Acting on the word of the Lord, one of the guild prophets said to his companion, "Strike me," but he refused to strike him. Then he said to him, "Since you did not obey the voice of the Lord, a lion will attack you when you have left me." When he left him, a lion came upon him and attacked him. Then the prophet met another man and said, "Strike me." The man struck him a blow and wounded him. The prophet went on and waited for the king on the road, disguising himself with a bandage over his eyes. As the king was passing, he called out to the king and said, "Your servant went into the thick of the battle." And suddenly someone turned and brought me a man and said, "Guard this man. If he is missing, you shall have to pay for his life with your life or pay out a talent of the silver." But while your servant was occupied here and there, the man disappeared. The king of Israel said to him, "That is your sentence. You have decided it yourself." He quickly removed the bandage from his eyes, and the king of Israel recognized him as one of the prophets. He said to him, "The Lord says, because you have set free the man I put under the ban, your life shall pay for his life, your people for his peoples." Disturbed and angry, the king of Israel set out for home and entered Samaria. 1 Kings chapter 21, Siege of the Naboth's vineyard. Naboth the Jezreelite had the vineyard in the Jezreel next to the palace of the Ahab, king of Samaria, sometime later. Ahab said to Naboth, "Give me your vineyard to be my festival garden, since it was close by next to my house. I'll give you a better vineyard in exchange, or if you prefer, I'll give you its value in money." Naboth said to Ahab, "The Lord forbid that I should give you my ancestral heritages." Ahab went home disturbed and angry at the answer Naboth the Jezreelite had given him. "I'll not give you my ancestral heritage." Lying down on his bed, he turned away and would not eat. His wife Jezebel came to him and said to him, "Why are you so sullen that you will not eat?" He answered her, "Because I spoke to the Naboth the Jezreelite and said to him, sell me your vineyard, or if you prefer, I'll give you a vineyard in exchange." But he said, "I'll not give you my vineyard." Jezebel, his wife, said to him, "What a king of Israel you are! Get up, eat and be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of the Naboth the Jezreelite." So she wrote the letter in Ahab's name, and having sealed them with his seal, sent him to elder and to the noble who live in the same city with Naboth. This is what she wrote in the letters: "Proclaim a fast and set Naboth at the head of the peoples." Next said to scoundrel opposite him to accuse him, "You have crossed God and the king." Then take him out and stone him to death. His fellow citizen, the elder of the noble who dwelt in his city, did as Jezebel had ordered in the letters she sent them. They proclaimed the fast and set Naboth at the head of the peoples. Two scoundrels came in and sat opposite Naboth, and the scoundrel accused him in the presence of the people. "Naboth has cursed God and king." And they let him out of the city and stoned him to death. Then they sent the word to the Jezebel, "Naboth has been stoned to death." When Jezebel learned that Naboth had been stoned to death, she said to Ahab, "Go take possession of the vineyard of the Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to sell you, because Naboth is not alive but dead." When Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, he started on his way down to the vineyard of the Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. Prophetic condemnations. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite. "Go down to meet Ahab the king of Israel, who is in Samaria. He will be in the vineyard of the Naboth, where he has gone to take possession." Tell him that thus says the Lord, at the morning do you also take possession, and tell him, thus says the Lord, in the place where the dog licked up the blood of the Naboth, the dogs shall lick up your blood too. Ahab said to Elijah, have you found me out, my enemy? He said, I have found you because you have given yourself up to doing evil in the Lord's sight. I am bring evil upon you, I am consume you, and will cut off every male belonging to the Ahab, whether born or free in Israel. I'll make your house like that of Jeroboam, son of the Nebat, and like the house of the Baasha, son of the Isaac, because you have provoked me by leading Israel into sin. Again, Jezebel to the Lord declared, the dog shall devour Jezebel in the confines of the Jezreelites. Anyone of the Ahab line who dies in the city, dogs will devour. Anyone who dies in the field, the birds of the sky will devour. Indeed, no one gave himself up to the doing of the evil in the sight of the Lord, as did Ahab, urged on by his wife Jezebel. He became completely abominable by going after idols, just as the Amorite had done, whom the Lord drove out of the Israelite ways. When Ahab heard these words, he tore his garment and put on the sackcloth over his bare flesh. He fasted, slept in the sackcloth, and went about subdued. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite. Have you seen how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Since he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his time. I will bring the evil upon his house in his son's times. 1 Kings chapter 22, Ahab defeated by Aram. 3 years passed without war between Aram and Israel. In the 3rd year, however, King Jehoshaphat of the Judah came down to the king of the Israel. The king of Israel said to his servant, do you not know that Ramoth Gilead is ours, and we are doing nothing to take it from the king of the Aram? He asked Jehoshaphat, will you come with me to fight against Ramoth Gilead? Jehoshaphat answered the king of Israel, you and I are as one, and your people and my people, your horses and my horses as well. Prophetic condemnations. Jehoshaphat also said to the king of Israel, seek the words of the Lord at once. The king of Israel assembled the prophet, about 400 of them, and asked, shall I go fight against the Ramoth Gilead, or shall I refrain? They said, attack, the Lord will give it into the power of the king. But Jehoshaphat said, is there no other prophet of the Lord here we might consult? The king of Israel answered, there is one other man through whom we might consult the Lord, but I hate him because he prophesies not good but evil about me. He is Micaiah, son of the Imran. Jehoshaphat said, let not the king say that. So the king of Israel called the official and said to him, get the Micaiah, son of the Imran, at once. The king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, were seated, each on his throne, clothed in their robes of the state in the square of the entrance of the gate of the Samaria, and all the prophets were prophesying before them. Zedekiah, son of the Chenaanah, made himself 2 horns of the iron and said, the Lord said, with this you shall go out until you have destroyed them. The other prophet prophesied in a similar vein, saying, attack Ramoth Gilead and conquer, the Lord will give it into the power of the king. Meanwhile, the messenger who had gone to the call Micaiah said to him, look, now the prophets are unanimously predicting good for the king. Let your words be the same as any of theirs. Speak a good word. Micaiah said, as the Lord lives, I shall speak whatever the Lord tells me. When he came to the king said to him, Micaiah, shall we go to fight at the Ramoth Gilead, or shall we refrain? He said, attack and conquer, the Lord will give it into the power of the king. But the king answered him, how many times must I adjure you to tell me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord? So Micaiah said, I see all Israel scattered on the mountains like a sheep without a shepherd. And the Lord saying, these have no master. Let each of them go back home in peace. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, did I not tell you, he does not prophesy good about me, but only evil? Micaiah continued, therefore hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord seated on his throne, with the whole host of the heavens standing to his right and to his left. The Lord asked, who will deceive Ahab so that he will go up and fall on the Ramoth Gilead? And one said to this, another that. Until this spirit came forth and stood before the Lord, saying, I will deceive him. The Lord asked, how? He answered, I will go forth and become a lying spirit in the mouths of all his prophets. The Lord replied, you shall succeed in deceiving him. Go forth and do this. So now the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouths of all these prophets of yours. The Lord himself has decreed evil against you. Thereupon Zedekiah, son of the Chenaniah, came up and struck Micaiah on the cheeks, saying, has the Spirit of the Lord then left me to speak with you? Micaiah said, you shall find out on the day you go into the inner room to hide. The king of Israel then said, seize Micaiah and take him back to Ammon, prefect of the city, and to Joash, the king's son, and say, this is the king's order, put this man in prison and feed him scant the ration of the bread and the water until I come back in safety. But Micaiah said, if you return in safety, the Lord has not spoken through me. He also said, hear, O peoples, all of you. Ahab at Ramoth Gilead. The king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to the Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I'll disguise myself and go into battles. But you put on your own robes. So the king of Israel disguised himself and entered the battles. In the meantime, the king of Aram has given his 32 chariot commanders the order, do not fight with anyone great or small, except the king of Israel alone. When the chariot commanders saw Jehoshaphat, they cried out, there is the king of Israel, and willed to fight him. But Jehoshaphat cried out. And the chariot commander, seeing that he was not king of Israel, turned away from him. But someone drew his bow at random and hit the king of Israel between the joint of his breastplate. He ordered his charioteers, rein about and take me out of the ranks, for I am wounded. The battle grew fierce during the day, and the king, who was a prophet of his chariot facing the Arameans, died in the evening. The blood from his wound flew to the bottom of the chariot. At sunset, a cry went through the army, every man to his city, every man to his land. And so the king died and came back to the Samaria, and they buried him there. When they washed out the chariot at the pool of the Samaria, the dogs licked up his blood, and the prostitute bathed there, as the Lord has prophesied. The rest of the act of Ahab, all that he did, including the ivory house he built and all the city he built, are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the king of Israel. Ahab rested with his ancestors, and his son Ahaziah succeeded him as king. Reign of the Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat, the son of the Asa, became king of the Judah in the 4th year of the Ahab, king of the Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he became king, and he reigned 25 years in the Jerusalem. His mother's name was Azubah, daughter of the Shil. He walked in the way of the Asa, his father, unceasingly, doing what was right in the Lord's sight. Nevertheless, the high place did not disappear, and the people still sacrificed on the high place and burned incense there. Jehoshaphat also made peace with the king of Israel. The rest of the act of the Jehoshaphat with his valor, what he did and how he fought, are recorded in the book of the Chronicle of the king of the Judah. He removed from the land the rest of the pagan priests who had remained in the reign of the Asa his father. There was no king in Edom but an appointed regent. Jehoshaphat made the Tarshish ship to go to the Ophrah for gold, but in fact the ship did not go because they were lacked at Ezion and Gilboa. There was time when Ahaziah, son of Ahab, he said to Jehoshaphat, "Let my servant accompany your servant in the ships." But Jehoshaphat would not agree. Jehoshaphat rested with his ancestor. He was buried with his ancestor in the city of David his father, and his son Jehoram succeeded him as king. Reign of the Ahaziah. Ahaziah, son of Ahab, became king over Israel in Samaria in the 17th year of the Jehoshaphat, king of the Judah. He reigned 2 years over Israel. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, working in the way of his father, his mother, and Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin. He served Baal and worshipped him, thus provoking the Lord, the God of Israel, just as his father had done.